Agents, listen up. This is what I need you to do. That character that you've personally invested in for years, I need you to set that character aside. Then I'm gonna need you to create a new character, and you're gonna use that character to play through the new seasonal content. And once you complete the season, you can go back to your main character. But once the next season comes, I'm gonna need you to set your main character aside again, and then create another new character that starts at level 1 and grind that character to complete the season. And then I'm gonna need you to do this again, and again, and again. Does this sound like a nightmare to you? Well, this is what Seasons 2.0 is offering the Division 2 community. It was recently announced at Ubisoft Forward. Now, this isn't implemented now, but it's coming out next season in just a few months. And Agent ATG says, I think people are just jumping to conclusions that we don't have enough information to make an informed judgment or assessment of the new reworks for Seasons 2.0. Don't we though? Let's find out. Here we are, year 6, season 1. And what's the hottest topic? Well, next season. That's because the devs dropped a bombshell. Well, they gave us news. Good news or bad, I'll let you decide, but we're gonna discuss it in depth. So we're talking about Seasons 2.0, Manhunt 2.0. And the comment section is in an uproar. And one of the reasons why is they're being treated like they don't have enough information to react to, good or bad, that they need to wait and see. I don't think that's the case. If you look closely on what the community is actually outraged about and the information that's been presented, there's not a disconnect. It's clear that the comment section, the Division 2 community, understands what is coming in Season 2.0. This is not live now. I repeat, this is not live now, but it will be live next season. So that's year 6, season 2. We're at the very beginning of season 1, and each season lasts 4 months. If you missed my recap on the Ubisoft Forward event, I encourage you to check it out so you can hear from the horse's mouth on what was revealed about this update. But they've posted an article explaining it as well. And so I'm not gonna read this all verbatim for you, but there are a couple of sections that I do want to look at closer because it's sort of the core of the topic. Let's start off with Seasons 2.0. Okay, so the current seasonal structure was deployed back when Warlords of New York was launched. March 2020, that was a long time ago, and it is exhausted. I'm sick of it. I am, or was, really excited, mostly for Seasons 2.0, more excited than the DLC, in fact. The reason why is because this is the content that we are introduced most frequently, and what's supposed to encourage us to play on and continue investing hours. And what's wrong with the current model is that it encourages people to abandon the game at the back half of the season once they complete the manhunt, because it just really gets stale and dried out and feels stretched out. Because they took the seasons from 3 to 4 months, which is a big drag, by the way. I wish they went back to 3 months. Maybe they will in the future, but we don't know for sure. So this is what the devs say about Seasons 2.0. At the core of this new model is a major shift, the introduction of seasonal characters. By focusing the season experience on new characters exclusively, we can create something unique each season with much more control over general balancing and player experience, without being constrained by the legacy of each individual existing character. You kind of get the gist of what they're saying here, right? They're saying that, well, this is a dated old game, and when we try to do something innovative, it breaks the game. So if we want to do something new and exciting, then we have to compartmentalize that new element. Basically, a separate game mode. Think of the Descent game mode, if you will. So each season is meant to be experienced from level 1, featuring a fully revamped and accelerated progression designed to swiftly guide players to the end game while gradually introducing all game mechanics to prepare them for level 40. You know, this does raise more questions than it does give answers, but there are a couple of key points worth noting. One is that, yes, you will be playing as a brand new agent, level 1, and you got to progress that agent to level 40. Think of the Descent game mode. If you haven't played that, let me just quickly remind you, when you enter into the Descent, you are a stripped down agent. It's like you are brand new. You have no weapons, you have no skills, you have no specializations, you have no build. And you have to build on that agent over time as you progress. So you do start out really weak. You do start out with very little survivability, but the enemies are also scaled down, and I would expect that to be the same here. So as you level up, so do the enemy threats. That's me speculating. We don't know for sure, but it looks like the end of the season will be level 40, where right now it's level 100 as far as the rewards track goes. So 1 to 40. What they also mentioned was a fully revamped and accelerated progression system designed to swiftly guide players to the end game. So swiftly, what does that mean? How many hours it takes to get to level 40? Well, currently, if you're a grinder, you can get through 100 levels in a single day in about 8 hours, give or take. If you're playing solo, if you're playing in a group, you can go faster. Most players who are regulars but not heavy grinders can get through a rewards track in about 3 solid days. And then the more casual players can take a couple of weeks. So which player are they going to tailor the experience for? I'd imagine somewhere around 10 to 20 hours, but I don't know what's better, faster or slower through this progression system. For me, it's probably getting back to my main character, so faster sounds good, but then does a really short season feel good? Does that feel like new content? And if it's too long, then we're gonna feel like it's a drag because we want to get back to our main character. So it's tough. I think balancing that time is a really important detail here. Next, it says to create and maintain an ever-fresh experience, each season will introduce a new set of gameplay modifiers, enabling new play styles and challenges that require a re-evaluation of established strategies and builds. At the end of each season, all your hard-earned XP and rewards will be transferred to your main character, while seasonal characters will be added to your roster. Yeah, you're gonna have an extra character slot on your roster, is what they've confirmed. So it's weird the way that they express this, because they're saying, well, we're gonna get freshly weekly assignments or whatever as it relates to this season instead of monthly as we're getting seasonal content now. But we don't, right? It doesn't come monthly. The manhunts come monthly, but the seasonal content is weekly. We have leagues, we have global events. Those are all experienced by our main characters. So where does that fit in here? It doesn't address that, but part of me feels like that stuff goes away because they're saying that the seasonal characters are going to have modifiers attached to them. Global events are basically modifiers. They're game modes with modifiers that you can turn on or off on your main character. So if they're saying a accelerated progression system for the entire season that ends at level 40, well, I don't see much time for there to be things like Golden Bullet or Reanimated. So we have seasons and we have manhunts, and these global events and these league events are attached to the seasons, not the manhunts. So from the details we've received, it sounds like we're going to be sprinting week to week with this new season character, and then it all comes to an end and we're back to just grinding the same old content except for that climax mission. So what did we just learn about their description of Seasons 2.0? You're going to be using a seasonal character that starts at level 1 and goes to level 40. And they're focusing the season experience on new characters exclusively. Okay, so if we just silence everything else that they've told us, that right there is a lot of information. You will need to use your new character to experience the new content. There's a lot of discussions out there. And one of the things that I think is really upsetting the player base is that they're being told that they don't have enough information. But the comment section is pretty clear to me. They're all focused in on that one element. Everything else is just detail. I think they get it. I think the community understands that they're gonna have a seasonal character that they must use to experience seasonal content. No, they don't have to use the seasonal character. They can use their main character, but then they don't get to experience the seasonal content. So are players being forced to use seasonal characters? Well, let's see what the community says. Okay, let's see what the comment section has to say about Seasons 2.0. Mauro Nascimentos asks about Seasons 2.0. We would be forced to play with that seasonal character, or we can continue with our max out main characters. No, you have to use seasonal characters to experience the new seasonal content. Can you still use your main characters? Yes, but not to experience Seasons 2.0. And then he responds a little bit later, if I cannot make the manhunt with my main character, I'll quit the game forever. I'm not going to be using a naked character again. There's a lot of people that are saying something similar to this, which is basically, I'll quit if I have to use a new character. I understand that, but I hope all those people that feel like Mauro at least wait to see what we get before making that move. Beagles says, I don't want to separate from my agent. I feel like I'm cheating on my best friend. I get that sentiment. You know that old song, Make New Friends. One is silver, the other is gold. Henry says, they said that the new Manhunt 2.0 weekly scouts were only available for this seasonal character in the video. Hence the uproar. Based on the responses from their community manager on the X account, our mains will only have access to the endgame mission at the end of the season. Well, Henry, it sounds like to me that you understand the information that they delivered in the year 6 reveal. So if you're upset, then I think the information that you're basing your feelings on seems accurate to me. What do you guys think? Eric Ploman says, I've done the seasonal characters in other games. Okay, so this is somebody with some experience on this. Interesting. This isn't a new concept, clearly, so fairly sure how it will work. See Diablo, for example. Yeah, Diablo comes up a lot, actually. We're going to review some other comments from people that definitely reference Diablo. I personally haven't played it, but it's interesting what people have to say about it. So back to this. It's not my thing in any way it's been done. I play one character that I invest time into. Starting over just because sucks. Sorry, it does. I think that's how I feel about it. Starting over just because sucks. That's one of the reasons why I think the Descent game mode is just not a hit. Of course, there are some people that like it. There will be some people that like the seasonal characters concept as well. There are some people that just don't want to start over just because, and that's what the Descent game mode does. And I keep going there with the seasonal characters because I feel like they're bringing out the Descent game mode into the seasons. The Descent game mode is actually not that old, so it's almost like they use that as a basis for testing the new seasons game mode. If so, what does their data say? Because from what I know from our community, which is quite large, not that many people play it. And the ones that do are only looking for exotics and those blueprints, and then they're out. But I only know a handful of people that play it on the regular for the sake of enjoyment. But here's the one thing about Descent. At the end of it, a single run, no matter how far you get, you're exhausted and you just don't want to go back in and start the new character all over. It really feels pointless and taxing. Smokin' Blunt 781 actually has a really interesting comment here. He says, servers aren't big enough to increase stash space, but it's big enough for everyone to have a seasonal character with 150 bag space that can transfer into your main character's backpack that has 10 space. Well, first, we don't know if that seasonal character will have any inventory, at least not 150 bag space. But he's got a really good point about the server thing, because an additional character will definitely take up some server space. Yeah, that's crazy, because they could just use that slot to increase our stash space. And you know how many people would be happy about that? You know how many people say that they would pay real dollars for extended stash space? It's crazy, but what if the incentive for creating a seasonal character was to actually extend your stash space? Since they're adding that character to the roster, what if the reward was 150 more slots? Would you do it then? I gotta say, I would. That's how important my gear is, and that's how important my stash space is. I would actually go through the trouble of creating a new character and leveling it up to 40 so that I can stretch out my stash. Wait a second, I already do that with my mules, but we can only have 3 of those. So this would go beyond that. So thanks, Smokin' Blunts. You had me thinking. Here's Adrian Gray. Let's see if Adrian understands the concept of Seasons 2.0. So the characters and builds you've spent hundreds of hours min-maxing are still usable, just not for the continuing story, future leagues, or upcoming Manhunt activities. You know, all the things your min-max builds are the most useful for. Am I really supposed to be excited that all the time and resources I put into my builds is now useful for a master mission and clearing level 4 checkpoints and random supply convoys or broadcasts? Like the character that killed Keener, hunted down Fei Lao, and located Kelso is now chilling on the sofa while level 12 random agent is finishing the story. Ridiculous. What do you guys think? Does Adrian get it? I mean, to me, it sounds like he does. He's being sarcastic here, but I think his message is clear. My agent has done all the work. My agent, me, hunted down Fei Lao. My agent located Kelso. I defeated Keener, or sort of. He came back, but I thought I defeated Keener. So if you're reading between his lines, he's saying that I identify with my character. I am my character. And now I'm sitting on the couch as I try to identify with this temporary character. So some people argue out there that you're not being forced to create a seasonal character. It's an option. Okay, I got it. Well, let's see if Travis Clay buys that. So they're not forcing you to create a seasonal character, he says, but if you want to do this season to get rewards you would normally get, they're forcing you to make a seasonal character. Gotcha. To me, it doesn't sound like Travis buys the idea that they're not forcing you to create a seasonal character, that you don't have to participate, because he's saying that's where all the new content is going to be. K Botev says, well, I'm playing for the story and I am a solo player, hence the master difficulty group missions are of no interest for me. That's a troubling issue for me as well, because the raids and the incursions are great examples of content that a big chunk of the player base don't get to enjoy. I'm not sure the division realizes how many of their players are solo players. Anyways, he says, forcing me to start new seasonal characters every time I want to continue enjoying the story is certainly a deal breaker for me. I don't like the seasonal character system in general. Never liked it in Diablo and in other games. Okay, so he's familiar with it. I like the feeling that my character is developing in the story. How exactly is the new character every time contributing to that feeling? Well said, KB. That's exactly right. It breaks the immersion. Also, I can't be bothered to make new builds and do everything from zero every time. I wonder if this guy plays the Descent game mode. Anyways, maybe that general sentiment is why the Descent game mode is not a hit. So most likely, I will finish the current season and bid Division 2 farewell. This is just my point of view. Well, KB, I hope that you don't leave because we have a strong player base and this is a great game. Whatever happens, I just hope we can make the best of it. Let's see what this community member says. Is Wolfpack. Still don't like the aspect of seasonal characters, as I really only play the game for the story lore, and not being able to use my character for a huge aspect of my drive to play this game really just sucks. If anything, let us use our main characters and just use a seasonal level system where they can still offer a diverse experience, as well as use modifiers and level progression for the manhunts while allowing us to play our own main characters. Besides, that new difficulty is only available for the manhunt climax missions, and once we play through that, it's back to the same old stuff we've been doing for God knows how long. Some may say that our main characters aren't obsolete, but they essentially are for basically 95% of each season's story and past grind. Wow, what do you guys think? Do you think he gets it? Well, I think he made a mistake there at the end. He says they essentially are obsolete for 95% of the season's story and past grind. I think that the new characters are obsolete for 100% of the season's story and past grind. So he did say, you know, why can't we just have our main characters? Well, they did sort of explain that. They said in not so many words that this is basically an old game, and every time we try to innovate something, it just shatters it to little pieces. Yeah, and that's why they're developing the Division 3, right? There's a certain point in every game where you just have to rebuild it. And this game is so old. I mean, the reality is Division 3 should have probably came out a couple of years ago, but we had development delays and outside influences like COVID that really changed the timelines, the roadmap of this game. But I think if we didn't have that global impact situation, then we'd be in a different state on this game. But it is what it is. The devs are trying to bring something innovative. They're trying to bring a game changer. But what data drove them to this seasonal character position? Who told them this was a good idea? Big Black says, seems like they could have just gave us the new content system without dismissing our main characters out of the fold. We like the story. We like our own character progression. Seasonal characters should be an option, not mandatory. They made new difficulty levels for people that want more challenge. Why punish people that just want to play the story with their main character? Year 6, Season 1 will be my last if changes aren't made. We don't want this, period. There's key words here that I think the community and the devs want to hone in on. Dismissing our main characters, mandatory, and the words punishing people. It's not good when the community feels like they are being punished. Do any of you feel like you're being punished by having to create a seasonal character? Does it feel punishing to you? What does Heathen say? From what I know, playing seasonal characters in Diablo. Oh, good, another Diablo comment. These are important because a lot of people are bringing up Diablo and many people haven't played it. So let's see what he has to say. He says that all new season content is locked behind the season character methodology. That to me sounds like that's what we have going. Okay, he says, most of us can't, not, and should not be asked to put our main character aside because they, Massive, wants us to play their way. Mind you, these mains have thousands of hours played, painstakingly crafted min-max builds and expertise like the icing on the cake. Yeah, you know what? I thought the same thing. I was like, what about my expertise? I want to use that on the manhunt. I want to use my hard-earned expertise in the seasonal content. So he says, surely you can see what I'm talking about here. It's audacity of shoving our collective faces in some half-baked last-second bombshell announcement and expecting us to like it. Seasonal characters work for other games because those methodologies are rooted in their gameplay, not 5-6 years later as a Hail Mary to keep some semblance of relevancy. With no details given and radio silence, we, the community, are left to our own speculation and panic. Yeah, that's true. We're going to talk more about that radio silence. Here's what I know, especially with dealing with Massive and the franchise from the Division 1 days. They just dropped a bombshell, so now they need to tread extremely effing lightly, especially with how volatile this community is. Yeah, we're very vocal, this community, right? Details on how, when, and what should be communicated sooner than later. The next few days would be prudential, not a few weeks from now when the community is good and pissed off from the speculation. And In my opinion, seasoned characters are a great way to alienate and divide an already dwindling player base. Long story short, most of us cannot be asked to start over, even if starting over means new content and rewards. I would hazard a guess that if the community makes a big enough stink about it, and guessing from the posts I've seen thus far, y'all ain't disappointing, that they will roll it back. Ooh, so much to unpack here, Heathen. I think that's maybe one of the best posts I've seen. So they just dropped a bombshell, he's saying, and they need to tread lightly. Tread lightly or be bold and just come out and meet us in the battlefield and let's talk it out. Let's duke it out, right? Number 2, he says communication needs to happen sooner than later. Absolutely. But one of the things that really upset me about Ubisoft Forward is that we lost that 1 hour face-to-face time with the devs that we get every season. It's the only time we get with the devs. Just one measly hour every 4 months. And we didn't get that. Instead, we got a super high-level recap with very little information, even on year 6, season 1, which was imminent for release, which we now have. Very disappointing that we didn't have that FaceTime. Can we have it now? Why not now? This team is not good with communication. At one point, I thought this was a Ubisoft thing, but I've been playing X Defiant and the devs over there are extremely vocal. They are commenting on everything on Twitter. They answer questions, they respond, they put out content based on player-based demand. People were saying they wanted Team Deathmatch that wasn't in their plans. They're releasing Team Deathmatch. Like within weeks. The game is just released and they're already responding with new content based on actual player feedback. X Defiant is a Ubisoft game. Why are their communication practices different than Massive's? Who's deciding that anyways? It's got me wondering now. And he then says that this is a great way to alienate and divide an already dwindling player base. Alienate and divide, well, we've already been alienated. The community's been divided, and dwindling, well, I don't know if I would say dwindling. If anything, we've been growing as of lately. We were dwindling before, and then we started growing over the last year like crazy, which was great. But yeah, this does have an impact on our player base, to your point, and it's to the longtime players, right? Because we're the ones that are ultra committed to our main character experience. We're the ones that are mentally invested in the story. The new players are just getting into it. So does this drive in so many new players that it's worth the cost of losing those long-term players? Well, the one thing I gotta say is this game wouldn't exist without those long-term players, because we were the ones that were there and stuck around when they were feeding us recycled seasons. Okay, now let's talk about the Manhunt 2.0, which is also coming with Seasons 2.0. So Manhunts have also undergone a transformation in year 6 with this introduction of weekly scouts. Now remember, this isn't deployed, this is next season. These scouts are going to offer engaging activities for seasonal characters. Clue in on that. With scouts, the Manhunt story will now progress weekly instead of monthly. That sounds nice. Offering an additional activity to engage in without disrupting your season progression. As always, the Manhunt events will conclude with a new climax mission, but with a twist, with a new difficulty level called Master. The Master difficulty will be available on top of the existing climax mission difficulties, normal through heroic. Why not legendary, I wonder? Providing a challenging gameplay experience tailored for a team of 4 players. Although they call this Manhunt 2.0, it's part of Seasons 2.0. Same deal, you can only experience the Manhunts with your seasonal characters. And then it unlocks the climax mission, which you can then replay with your main character at this new master difficulty level. One of the things that I don't like, besides not being able to use my main character for the Manhunt, obviously the fact that this experience is tailored for a team of 4 players. And the reason why I don't like that is because so far it's been proven that this type of content is extremely difficult for the general player base, especially since it has a master difficulty tied to it. I mean, look at the incursion. So many players out there need help with the incursion and haven't been able to get the Ouroboros because of the way it's structured, which is it's specifically tailored for 4 players. And there are mechanics in there that require communications and upfront understanding. I don't know if this master difficulty will require that, but we don't have a true definition of what master difficulty is yet. It's something we're gonna have to experience ourselves. The question is it beyond legendary or is it something between heroic and legendary? I sort of have a feeling it's something in between heroic and legendary. I don't have any evidence of that, but the reason why I think that is because, you know, they've been trying to tailor their content for the more casual player, and so that would make sense for me if they did that, but we will see. So you know that saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it? Well, the seasons are broken, so they need to be fixed. But you know what's not broken? our main characters. We love our main characters. Are those two ideas difficult to understand? I don't think so. But the way that the devs are addressing the season issue is that it's breaking something that's not broken to fix something that is broken. The solution, I think, is simple, right? Allow our main characters to take those modifiers and experience the season. But this is what I'm worried about. Because the devs dropped the information the way that they did, we are left with nothing but our imagination to run wild. And where my mind is going, I think the way they see it is that we're going to be double grinding. We're going to be playing the Division 2 from two perspectives at the same time. Because the seasonal character is an additional character on our roster, we're going to be using that character and taking on the weekly experiences that they're going to be adding as part of the season new content. So we're going to be using that agent for that. And then we're going to log back out once we complete that task or event for the week and go back to our main character. And then what? Just grind out the same old stuff, the same old open world and missions that we've been doing the whole time. And we're going to keep doing that every single week until the season ends. And then finally we can take our new agent to replay that climax mission over and over again. But otherwise we don't have any new content, but now we can apply whatever said new gear or weapons or exotics that were earned by our seasonal character on our new agent. So there's going to be a delay in which we can experience the new gear, a delay in which we can experience the new exotics. And that goes back to the timeline issue. So if the season is too short, we won't feel like we got much new content at all. If it's too long, then it's delaying the content that we truly want to experience with our main character, which is the new gear and I guess this climax mission. Everything I just said sounds confusing. If you were going in circles in your mind, then yeah, that's, I think, the experience that we have to look forward to. Basically, two realities within the Division 2. Two realities. But we do have something to compare this to right here in the game, and that is the Descent game mode. It's a roguelite game mode, but so there's fantasy builds and unlimited power potential. The reason why it doesn't flourish in the Division 2, this game mode, the Descent, is because players don't want to invest time in something that's not their main character. It's just the simple fact. It doesn't matter how good the game mode is. It doesn't matter how cool the idea is. It's the role-playing side of the Division 2 that people have grasped onto for great reasons. And there's a lot of room for development in that area. But to abandon your central character that the players are mentally attaching themselves to is not really a great idea in this game. The idea is anybody can be a Division agent. It could be the neighbor. It could be your local firefighter, the grocery clerk. It could be you. And that's the point. An average Joe can be the hero. And that's what we're playing to be. And so to morph into different characters just breaks that immersion. Another game that was recently experiencing this with negative feedback was The Division Heartland. I gotta say, from what I experienced from Heartland, that was the biggest point of contention with me. There were survival elements in Heartland, and so when your agent was too injured or fatigued, you would have to go back to your base of operations and basically put them to rest and then check out a different character and then use that character. And again, it's just like, oh, I'm progressing multiple characters here or playing in multiple identities. There's games that do that where maybe you're running a squad and each squad member has different abilities. And so that complements. And so you could morph into this character so that you can maybe be the demolitionist and then morph into that character so you can be a sniper. Yeah, there are games that have done that well, but to really get into a game, it's one personality. When you want your player base to log endless, potentially never-ending hours into your game, you want them to lock in on a single character that they identify with. That's the key. They identify with that character. They're attached to it. Okay, brace yourselves, because this is where we sort of have to face reality with the Division 2. Let's kick it off by looking at Katie's comment here. They should not have dropped this on us without more talk about it. Details. Unless they wanted the community to grab their pitchforks and torches, which is exactly what's happening, right? I feel like that they sort of just threw out news because they felt pressured that they had to for the Ubisoft Forward event. Hey, I like feature information about this game as much as the next fellow does, but you know what I like about this? It just shows that no matter how hungry the Division 2 player base is for content, we're not just going to take anything. Or maybe we're sick of just taking whatever the devs throw our way without passing a bias first. Like KT says here, any comment on the overwhelmingly negative reception to seasonal characters, or is player feedback irrelevant? Well said, KT, and I've been marching to that tune for a while now. I stopped believing that our feedback even matters, or at least our definitions of feedback are not aligned. For example, Year 6 Season 1, we saw a glimpse of this new content back in the PTS. It was overwhelmingly negative as well, and we gave that feedback. Some of us content creators actually created videos to help the devs see what our perspective was, and the community commented on those videos with their own thoughts. And then, of course, the PTS is designed for us to give our feedback. And I'm coming from years of experience. I've been playing this game nonstop since 2019. And I can honestly say I have seen our feedback impact the release very few times. I can count it on my left hand. And they've always been minor adjustments. The devs do not let the community drive content in this game. It is developer driven, which is not data driven apparently, because data would have to be driven by the community. And I'm not attacking the devs for the sake of attacking. It's frustrating to provide quality, time invested feedback and feel like you're not being heard. And I'm speaking for the entire community, not just myself. This season's new gear and exotics are horrible, but they had potential and we gave them ideas and we got basically exactly what we experienced in the PTS. How does that happen? Well, I'll tell you, it happens because the feedback that they were looking for is, does it work or is it glitchy broken? And if it works, then it's being released. But any of your ideas, we're not interested in that type of feedback. Jess Lynn says, y'all really need to clarify things. You announced major controversial changes with as little info as possible and pissed off a sizable portion of the fan base. Jess is not wrong, and the devs need to do a little press release or do a video to clarify things. More importantly, let us know our feedback is being heard. It's okay if they defend their position. I'm down for that. Justify why you're going the way you're going. Give us some data. Yama Bushido says, if it's 4 months away, it's a done deal. Too late for them to listen to their overwhelming majority. Almost unanimous rejection. Yes, we certainly need more info, which should have been there with such a bombshell. I can't see this being a good Year 6 fit at the moment. I don't know about you guys, but I'm absolutely on board with Yamabushido's feedback here. It's a done deal, and I hate telling you that. But I'm saying this from my experience. There's only been one time that the devs reversed a content plan, and that was the gear lock. And you know how much feedback had to come in about the gear lock? That was part of Project Resolve. It was a ton. It was a ton of feedback, and that was a small detail. This is a whole entire gaming system. This is seasons. This is Manhunt. It's supposed to launch in a few months. There's no way that they're gonna abandon it because of our feedback. And I'm saying that because our feedback has never had an impact on what they do. But you know what? Around here, we're going to continue to try to be heard. ST with a bunch of numbers says, welcome to 2024. Loyalty doesn't get anything. New players get far more than loyalty. Yeah, because that's what's paying the bills, right? Gamer review. It all comes down to knowing your audience. Ubisoft really let people down with the communication. For such a big change pushed to a post-Ubisoft forward, didn't even make the main event, then throw on top the demise of Heartlands, again with very little communication, to then be forced to start a new character to play new content is mind-boggling. Look on X, the vast majority of the community are not happy. The part I can't understand is why do it? And remember, the feedback that the community is getting is that, hey, you don't get it. You don't have enough information to get it. I strongly disagree. I think the community gets it. I get it. The only reasons I can think of is to increase the challenge, but they are allowing new characters to level up fast, so that doesn't work. To get new players in and pull in some returning players, and how long does that last? Having to restart a new character each season. The easiest solution would be to leave it as it is. If you want to use your main character, so be it. If you want the challenge, start a new character or a hardcore one. Or better, still at least put the master difficulty across everything. Let's face it, this is going to end up losing more people than they pull in. Such a shame. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is. Gamer Review laid down the problem and gave us a solution. So that's really good feedback. I appreciate that. But I can't imagine a rework here. And he does have a point. The easiest solution is just to leave it be. But that would mean forfeiting the content. And the problem is this probably folds into the new DLC. This aligns with something over there. And they have a monetization system that they would have had to get corporate approval on. There's no way they're walking that one back. Multiplicative division. We have these debates internally between ourselves. That's sadly true. But the devs don't take any feedback, positive or negative. 100% agree. They say they do. They say they're listening. They say they play this game, but they don't show it. So to me, I don't see any active listening. We need to see more of that. Look what changed from the PTS to the release of the season. Nothing. We just talked about that, right? Exactly. Did they change anything on the stupid rugged gauntlets in the prior season based on all the negative feedback? No. And probably because they think things like that and the mosquito are the most used items in the game, right? The stats guy, let's go after him. And then Multiplicative says, we don't have a social media manager or any evidence that the devs will listen to all this chatter going on about this change. With everything that's been discussed today, I would say that the number one issue is not the devs forcing this into a seasonal character. The problem is they're not hearing our feedback. And if the game is supposed to be built on their audience, then that explains the disconnect because the developers are not in touch with their audience. It is a problem, but it can be solved. Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Tuxedo Bandido, and this was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.
I get it.